Gratitude in its most profound form can be a guiding life force. Aidan Hubbard knows better than most. By all accounts, flying an airplane for Jay Usitalo was a sacred endeavor.
It's just, you know how people would go and communicate, pray to God in a quiet place? That was his place, I think.
I didn't know the man, but I like to think of him up there, trying to get closer to his God, to something untouchable, searching maybe for a singular moment of perfection and grace. That's him as a boy, building airplanes. His was a flying family. His grandfather took him up as a child, and there was never a question that Jay would soar. And even then, as a kid, he seemed to identify with eagles.
Yeah, he always had this thing about eagles. And as he grew older, that the eagle sort of began to be almost a spiritual thing for him.
As a boy, Aidan was drawn to flying too. Sometimes his Uncle Jay, the cool uncle, as he calls him, would take him up.
It was larger than life, I'd say.
And so 3 years ago, when Aidan was living in Cheney and dealing with a bully at school, his Uncle Jay invited him to spend a weekend in Redmond. It was a clear Saturday and the sky was calling. They climbed into Jay's Mall M5, a four-seater, and took off. Off to the right, less than 200 feet away, they saw something amazing, a bald eagle riding a thermal.
He thought it was almost a connection, a guardian that would be watching over whenever he's flying. He knew that there was a companion with him almost.
But 30 minutes into the flight, something changed. The sound of the engine was different.
I didn't know at the time. I think Jay definitely knew that there was something wrong. The plane was getting much louder, the altitude, we were losing altitude. He was telling me stories to try to take my mind off of it, I guess, I think.
Aidan had told us that he had said, you know, look, do you see any eagles, Aidan? Is there, you know, what else do you see out there? And he was trying to keep Aidan outwardly focused.
Maybe it was during one of the stories, his mind racing, fighting back his own panic, that Jay reached down and unbuckled his seatbelt. And then the engine seized up and stopped.
Almost stupidly, I said to my uncle, that wasn't supposed to happen, right? And he said, no, it wasn't. And he got to work. As soon as it stopped, he did everything he could to start it back up again. It was quiet. I remember saying a small little prayer. Not necessarily asking to survive this, but just for things to be okay. Just for that comfort. And it was immediate. I immediately knew that things would be okay. And I didn't know I was going to survive. I didn't know if I was going to walk away. I didn't know if Jay was going to walk away with me. If I survived, I just comforted.
You were at peace.
Yeah, definitely.
Jay saw a field that he thought he could get to, but as they dropped with the engine in front, they couldn't see directly below them.
The last second, a house appeared right in front of us. It wasn't a small house, it was a big house, and we were heading right for it. The last thing I remember is Jay actually jumping and throwing himself on top of me. And the blow that hit him, the blunt force trauma that hit him would have killed me instantly.
Jay Usitalo died on impact, a shield at the end for his young nephew. They found Aidan hanging upside down with a broken back, shattered teeth, traumatic brain injuries with burns and internal damage, but he was alive. The plane, as it was removed, gave twisted, mangled testimony to the enormity of the miracle that had occurred within. A small army of first responders cut Aiden out. He was airlifted to Harborview. The road ahead would be long and painful.
It's not easy to lose a brother and have the miracle of your son being saved in the same moment.
I guess lastly, Aiden, just, you know, you're gonna be all right after all this?
Yeah. I am.
You got a whole life ahead of you, right?
Yeah. I plan on living it fully, as best as I can.
Profound gratitude as a guiding life force. I didn't know the man, but I know this. At 2:50 in the afternoon on March 9th, 2013, at the very instant that Jay Usitalo fought against the laws of physics and the human instinct of self-preservation to thrust his body on top of Aiden Hubbard as his plane plummeted to the earth, at that instant, he touched something that only a tiny chosen few ever touch, a singular moment of perfection and grace. The stuff, the heroin and the booze, the meth and the painkillers and the dope. How powerful is it? How good is the stuff? Good enough to give up everything for it. Love and hope, the past and the future, children and their love, a roof and four walls. To give up those things, the stuff must be very, very good.
I tried it. I got addicted to it. I felt the high. It felt good. I didn't stop.
They'll do its bidding. They'll steal for it, lie and cheat for it, even die for it. The stuff is good, unbelievably good, and then it is bad. Gut-churning, teeth-rotting, soul-shattering bad. But by then the love affair has been cemented, and to turn away from it, to break up with the stuff, hurts more than anything. Look at those eyes, icy blue, knowing, tired. Maybe they've seen too much. Look at the hands, dirty, adorned, worn down. Their grip on this life is tenuous. Every part of this woman expresses, tells a story.
I'll spare any change today? Thanks anyway.
Her name is Lexi. She is funny and bright. She is homeless and a drug addict.
Spare any change this afternoon? Thank you anyways.
She is beaten down and worn out, and her story is a tragedy in search of a happy ending. And as the days and years pass, the happy part grows ever more unlikely.
How old are you now?
27 now.
27.
Yep.
You seem older than 27 to me.
A lot of people think I'm a lot younger, a lot older.
Yeah.
Or they ask me if I have kids, or yeah. As I think I've experienced enough life and death for 3 or 4 lifetimes.
How does it happen? Who are these kids that end up here like this? For Lexi, it wasn't always about the streets and death and drugs. That is her as a little girl, dancing. And maybe you'll be interested to know that she's dancing at my wedding in 1995. You see, Lexi isn't just some homeless kid.
It's as close as in your own family.
Yeah.
To me, she is family. She is blood, my first cousin's granddaughter.
Hey, Alex. Look, you're on TV. Yes, you are.
The first time I interviewed her was 25 years ago.
Tell me about this book you're looking at here.
I'm looking at the Bambi.
You're looking at what?
Bambi.
Who's Bambi? Huh?
I don't know.
You know, you just had your whole life in front of you, and you had a charisma about you, and you still do, Lexi. But I remember thinking, this girl's amazing. And she's still in there, right? I mean...
Yeah. No, I mean, I've bounced back before. I still want to be a chef. I still consider myself a cook.
I wish I could go back and warn her about life and all the things that trip us up.
What now?
Kids can't be in that newspaper.
Why not?
I wish I could have caught her along the way and turned her in a different direction, made her understand that she never was invincible.
It's good to see you, Eric.
It's good to see you. Take care of yourself, all right?
Say hi to Mo and the kids.
I will say hi to Mo and the kids.
Somewhere behind those stunning eyes that seem so tired now, I know Lexi would like to go back too and start over. I bet she thinks about it all the time. An old Chevy hubcap, an old photo of a guy in his car, an old drinking fountain from the 50s. All just tiny parts of a living, evolving mosaic, a cluttered, kaleidoscopic quiltwork of American life called XXX Root Beer. This place is the goodness of what we were, looking back at us through the prism of time. Big food, great tunes, good times.
Oh, man, it's really good stuff.
Every weekend there's a car show at XXX, and all different kinds of people, black, white, Hispanic, you name it, speak the language of the automobile.
Had more torque than any production engine in the world that year.
Check that out.
Oh, he got that flathead V8.
Check it out, dude. Everything works except the horn.
Jose Enciso built this place from nothing. Remember that hubcap? There's a story there.
I didn't have nothing to do with the decoration. It just happened. The guy brought me a hubcap. Hey, here, we'll put it up.
And that old drinking fountain? There's a story there too. Only this one is different.
We used to be migrant cotton pickers, you know. And so, you know, this was back in Texas, which at that time it was really racial. I mean, it was open season, you know.
They followed the crops. Unwelcome in motels, they slept under their truck. Unwelcome in restaurants and grocery stores, somehow they made do.
You know, since we couldn't buy groceries to buy lunch when we were traveling, what my dad and the crew would do is that he would stop to the side of the road, and all the men would get off and they go hunt rabbits. And so all the women would take, you know, the cotton branches and make fire.
There is one story that is etched into Jose's mind like a tattoo and will live there forever. One farmer gave Jose's dad a few acres so he could grow his own fruit to sell it on the side of the road.
And I remember, you know, a bunch of white guys, men, drove up on a station wagon, and they got off and they started screaming at us and calling us names and cussing and stuff, and we freaked out. I mean, we didn't know what was happening, you know, us kids. But my dad knew. So what my dad did, he braced us and he held us, you know, he covered the leg. So what these guys did, they grabbed the melons and they threw them on the ground and took it and they started throwing them at us. I remember seeds all over the place and sticky, you know, yeah. And church, coming out of church, you know.
And there was something else. Jose says that in those parts, in those days, Mexicans weren't allowed to use drinking fountains. They drank instead straight from the spigots. And so at XXX today, that porcelain fountain is a private symbol hidden in plain sight. And the spigot that's been placed behind it is no accident either.
Just a reminder, you know, to keep going, endurance.
So how is it that this man of all men would build this temple to the very time and the very nation that wounded him so deeply? Maybe the giant root beers are his answer to drinking fountains he wasn't allowed to use. Maybe the giant burgers are his answer to the daily rabbit for lunch. Maybe the welcoming hospitality, the cheery sweetness of this man. Maybe that's his answer to the rejection and confusion he faced as a boy. And maybe all of it, the whole celebration of Americana, the cars, the flags, the memorabilia, maybe it's all just that kid in Texas, still trying to prove something, trying to prove that he's an American.
I proved myself to love this country. I worked for it.
So perhaps we've had it all wrong about XXX root beer. Maybe this place isn't a celebration of what America was, but rather what it always wanted to be. And maybe somehow that's been Jose's point all along.
Jose, you're my hero.